dedicated to conveying value and interpreting great books worldwide. Hello, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today we're exploring the art of delegation. Ever had this workplace headache? You just got promoted to manager, the excitement hasn't worn off yet, and bam, problems come flooding in. You're swamped with endless tasks, wanting to delegate but stuck deciding what to hand off. Everything seems equally crucial and complex. You worry subordinates might procrastinate, do shoddy work, or worse, totally mess things up. End result, you redo everything yourself anyway. So you micromanage, specify exact formats, content requirements, even spell out step-by-step instructions. But something feels off. They still wait for your cue at every turn. You're stressed as ever, thinking, I should have just done it myself. Authority Hiro Ogura notes managers who can't delegate properly don't just burn themselves out. They also miss crucial higher-level work like system optimization and strategic planning. Meanwhile, their team gets no growth opportunities, stalling careers. That's why mastering delegation is essential for every leader. It's Leadership 101. Important note, we're talking about temporary assignments beyond routine duties, though these may become regular tasks later. Hiro Ogura, born in 1965, is Japan's renowned HR expert specializing in leadership development. With 20-plus years leading teams, he now chairs his own HR consultancy, having guided 30,000 managers. His expertise shines in developing talent and building managerial leadership. Ogura argues delegation requires first finding the right handoff method, then mitigating risks. The handoff itself is simple. Match suitable tasks with capable people. Risk reduction? That's about managing the delegation process. We'll explore this through 3 key questions, starting with, what work should you actually delegate? Second, what kind of people to delegate to? Third, how to specifically execute delegation. First, let's discuss the initial question. What tasks are suitable for delegation? The author believes there are 2 types of work suitable for delegation. First, fixed and repetitive tasks, like preparing materials for weekly meetings or taking minutes. And so, when subordinates handle these well, managers can increase difficulty and delegate more. The second type is work that effectively enhances subordinates' abilities and benefits their career development. For example, the author's company offers leadership development consulting. But if the consultants lack leadership experience themselves, how can they offer practical advice? Based on this, the author consciously assigns roles like morning meeting leader or report manager to build leadership experience through daily work. These are the types of work that truly benefit subordinates' career growth. Notably, the author doesn't use subordinates' readiness as a criterion. No need to wait until they're fully prepared. Once you find suitable work based on these 2 criteria, just assign it directly, because people usually grow fastest only after being given real responsibility. But the author warns managers, never suddenly assign 3 types of work, completely unfamiliar tasks, work crucial to the company's future, or personnel allocation duties. Why is that? First, completely unfamiliar work means tasks in areas the subordinate has never been involved in before. The author once encountered exactly this situation. One day, he suddenly received a communication from the company newsletter editorial department. It was an email from a staff member asking him to confirm proposal content. Turns out, the manager wanted to develop subordinates through beneficial work, so he had them create the proposal themselves and report directly to the boss. But previously, such proposals were always reported in person by the newsletter editor-chief. So instead of replying by email, the author called the manager to understand. The author points out, while delegating is a good idea, this staff member had never done it before and lacked any interaction with relevant contacts. Just letting him jump into unfamiliar territory like this isn't conducive to smooth workflow. Just like the author himself, upon receiving this staff member's email, didn't reply, but instead called their manager to communicate. 88, from another perspective, Having subordinates rashly take on completely unfamiliar work is actually a sign of the manager washing their hands of responsibility. Now, of course, if managers must delegate such completely unfamiliar tasks, they should proceed gradually. I'll cover specific delegation methods in Part 3. The second type of work you shouldn't force on subordinates is tasks crucial to the company's future development. For example, planning talent development or exploring new business directions. These kinds of tasks shouldn't be delegated to subordinates. First, these tasks are highly complex, almost the most advanced work in a company, requiring experienced hands.
Moreover, such work often involves synthesizing multiple factors. Subordinates' day-to-day scope is limited, making it hard for them to think holistically. Even if the manager aims to develop them into leaders,
This work should still be led by the manager. The third type is personnel allocation duties. For this kind of work, the person needs deep familiarity with workflows and content to allocate tasks reasonably. Crucially, having subordinates instead of managers assign tasks fosters unnecessary competition among them. Some might think, we're peers. Why should he assign my work? Thus, the author notes that no matter how capable the subordinate, suddenly assigning personnel allocation duties has a high failure rate. All right, that covers the first question. What work is suitable for delegation? The author listed 2 types suitable for delegation and 3 unsuitable. Suitable, repetitive and fixed tasks, plus work that effectively enhances subordinates' abilities and benefits their career growth. Unsuitable, work completely unfamiliar to subordinates, tasks vital to the company's future, and personnel allocation. Knowing what work to delegate. Next, let's tackle the second question. Who should managers choose to delegate to? I've distilled the author's advice into 3 principles. First principle, delegate to trusted individuals rather than just capable ones, because from a subordinate's perspective, being assigned work by a manager feels no different than accepting unreasonable demands. These tasks fall outside their original job responsibilities. They might be completely new territory, so pressure is inevitable and work hours will extend. If subordinates are capable but lack mutual trust with the manager, they might suspect the manager is deliberately making things hard for them. For example, if a manager assigns urgent work without trust, the subordinate might think, dumping work on me today and demanding it tomorrow. Who's he trying to bury? Does he even consider how I feel? But with mutual trust, the subordinate's perspective shifts completely.
even with tomorrow's tight deadline, they might think. The manager must have valid reasons, probably pressure from his own boss.
I'll push through tonight. See how trust completely changes perspective and outcomes. Second principle, voluntary acceptance, though the author advocates forcing assignments, meaning delegating challenging work before subordinates feel fully ready.
We must note, forcing isn't coercion. Acceptance must remain voluntary.
Think of it this way. Forcing means unexpectedly presenting an opportunity. The choice to accept rests entirely with the subordinate.
Managers should do 2 things. First, transparently explain challenges.
Second, extend a genuine invitation. Managers must fully disclose difficulties, time constraints, and pressure levels. Also, highlight learning opportunities, skills gained, and experience acquired. After this full disclosure, formally ask if they wish to accept, then pass the decision to them. Subordinates clearly understand they'll bear all risks regardless of choice. But if a manager says, "You're perfect for leadership, you must take this," that's coercion. And when difficulties arise or projects fail, subordinates will likely shift blame.
I didn't actually want to handle this. My manager forced me into it.
The third principle, select those with long-term career plans or who work diligently. Short-term, taking extra assignments is a raw deal. More work, longer hours, no immediate promotion or raise. Without long-term goals, they might think, no pay bump, forget it, too much trouble. But with long-term visions, becoming an expert, gaining experience for top firms, or even starting their own business someday, their perspective shifts. They might think to stand on my own in the future. This experience is invaluable. I'll gladly take this challenge. That's why long-term planners make ideal candidates for delegation. Managers might also find people without grand visions but committed to excelling at immediate tasks.
Such subordinates steadily deliver quality work and prove highly reliable.
Truthfully, not everyone has crystal clear career plans. Among 30,000 plus managers, the author advised, only 1 to 2% had clear, long-term visions he could sense. Through delegation, managers can help them sketch career goals and form initial visions. For example, what level could you reach through this experience? What might your future career path look like? What roles could you grow into? But choice means managers might face rejection. So what if a subordinate declines? The author urges caution here. Don't just reassign to another subordinate. The initial choice was carefully considered. Others weren't first picks precisely because they lack ability or other qualities, risking failure. Thus, the author suggests 2 actions. First, temporarily keep the work yourself rather than force it onto others. Second, reassess whether this work still has value to continue or if it should be canceled. All right, that concludes the second question on who managers should delegate to. They should follow 3 principles. First, find people with mutual trust. Second, let subordinates decide for themselves whether to accept the work. Third, find people with long-term career plans or who work diligently. If a subordinate declines, it's best for the manager to handle it themselves. Meanwhile, evaluate whether the work should continue. Once the task is chosen and the person is found, next we move to the third question. How to specifically execute delegation? I'll organize the author's suggestions into 3 dimensions: before delegation, after delegation, and final review. These suggestions aim to reduce delegation risks and help subordinates grow. First, let's look at before delegation. The core keywords here are transferring responsibility and proceeding step by step. Before starting delegation, the most crucial point is that managers must clearly transfer responsibility along with the task to subordinates. If mistakes occur, subordinates must correct them themselves. Managers shouldn't intervene. For example, if a subordinate is responsible for compiling meeting materials, verifying data accuracy is also their duty. What if I look at the paper? At this point, someone might ask, what if a subordinate's error affects the whole operation and causes company losses? The author's stance is clear. To cultivate subordinates, even sacrifice performance if necessary, because expecting to gain excellent talent without any sacrifice is nearly impossible. Under this premise, the author further advises not to lower requirements just because it's the subordinate's first time. Instead, apply consistent standards from the start. If you lower the requirements, they'll set even lower standards for themselves. They might think, I'll just do it carelessly. The manager will help fix it anyway. Before delegating, another point to note is that the process must be gradual. As mentioned earlier with the internal newsletter, originally the editor-in-chief reported directly to the author in person. But this manager delegated the work to a subordinate without informing others, didn't explain the original reporting method, and allowed the subordinate to change from in-person reporting to email confirmation, which seems highly inappropriate. And so what's the proper process? There should be at least 3 phases. First, the manager leads with subordinate support. Then the subordinate leads with manager support. Finally, full subordinate ownership. This completes pre-delegation preparation. Now the manager formally delegates the work to the subordinate. 2 core principles here. No interference, no neglect. If you want growth, don't micromanage. As a manager, imagine yourself as a mother watching her child's piano recital. When the child performs, you can't play for them, just cheer from the sidelines. You might mentally note, the opening is crucial. Good, no issues, solid start. This next section often trips people up. Come on. Yes, nailed it. This mindset, observing closely but never intervening unnecessarily, is exactly what managers need. For managers, resisting interference is delegation's hardest yet most vital part. Many fear subordinates' mistakes, claiming to delegate while commanding like clones. The author did this too until subordinate Jing Tang said, "You said you delegate, but I feel untrusted. You demand I mirror your methods. I'm not your carbon copy. If delegating, let me use my approach, or I'll decline." Jing Tang taught him, compromise on outcomes, not methods. Allow different approaches. True delegation requires genuine trust. That's how work improves and subordinates grow. But managers can't neglect either. Regular check-ins prevent disasters. Discovering chaos last minute leaves no time for fixes. How to balance this management tightrope. Some managers say, "Come to me anytime with problems." The author believes this often becomes an empty promise. Until the project ended, the subordinate never came to report progress to the manager. Honestly, it's pretty understandable. Maybe they saw the manager was always busy, so it was tough to ask questions. Or maybe the subordinate is scared of the manager, thinking their questions are too basic, feeling like they're not up to the task. Another big possibility is that to report to the boss, you gotta prep all your materials in advance. Otherwise, you might get yelled at. So the subordinate wants to wait till they're fully prepped before going to the manager, but ends up putting it off again and again. As the deadline gets closer, they're more afraid to approach the manager because if they go now, all those piled up problems might get uncovered. The boss will definitely ask, "Why didn't you come to me sooner?" So how do we fix this mess? The author suggests managers can try these 3 things. First, set up a communication system. This could be once a day or even once a week, whatever works. To avoid making subordinates feel constantly watched and stressed, schedule chats during casual times like lunch or afternoon tea. During these talks, the key is for managers to ask about progress like a supporter, not grill them like an interrogator. For example, if a manager says, "How are you handling that case? Why haven't you started? How will you finish like this?" That's grilling. But if the manager says, "About this issue, any difficulties or questions for me," then the subordinate will naturally share details. Managers can also answer any questions from subordinates. But the author also stresses, just give your own view here. The choice to take the advice is still up to the subordinate. Like, the author once told a subordinate, "I just looked over the seminar topic and have some thoughts. Can I think out loud?" Hearing that, the subordinate smiled and said, "Sure, go ahead." So the author said, this topic name could easily mislead people about the content, making it seem unrelated. That might make customers doubt our professionalism. If it were me, I'd change the name to match the content as closely as possible. The next day, this subordinate reported back to the author. They didn't change the name, but tweaked the seminar content instead. In this case, the author's thinking aloud meant not forcing subordinates to accept advice. Though they didn't take his suggestion, they heeded his reminder about topic content alignment. And the author was delighted. Exactly what the communication system aims to achieve. Controlled process, smooth information flow. But beyond good communication, we need effective task reminders. That's the author's second suggestion. Set deadlines and break down tasks. Managers can guide subordinates to split large tasks into smaller ones, setting milestones for each. This makes progress clear. What's done, what's challenging, and current status, all visible at a glance. Third, caring about progress isn't enough. Managers must express empathy, validation, and understanding. The author considers this the core of manager-subordinate communication. When subordinates face problems, managers should say, "This has been weighing on you. Must feel really tough." When they work overtime, "You're pushing hard. I see your dedication." Often, subordinates know what and how to do things, but struggle to take that first step. Manager validation is that gentle nudge from behind. The author once set a negative example. A subordinate failed to meet deadlines. He angrily scolded, "Can't even handle this? How can I trust you with responsibility?" Then demanded, "Redo everything and follow my instructions this time." Afterward, the subordinate's morale plummeted, completely demotivated. They eventually quit, Team morale stayed low, and the author lost the team's trust. But even with balanced management, remember this crucial rule: never bypass levels. Absolutely never command your subordinates directly. An example: a manager delegates responsibility to a team lead, but issues commands directly to the lead's staff. The correct approach: manager, then team lead, then staff deployment. Once at a company seminar, the author noticed melancholic classical music playing. He felt it clashed with the event's tone and debated ordering an immediate change. But he held back. Instead, after the seminar, he called the manager in charge and asked if they'd confirmed the background music, emphasizing how crucial that step was. Why didn't the author change it on the spot? That would have been more efficient, right? Simple. If he had, the manager might never have realized the music mismatch and would keep neglecting background checks. Plus, from the manager's perspective, the boss directly commanding their staff feels like losing the boss's trust. Hence, the author stresses no bypassing levels is key. Now that delegation's done, it's time for phase 3, review. For this phase, the core keywords are summarize and optimize. First, if the project failed, managers must accept failure and give subordinates space to fail. Most importantly, extract lessons learned. The author suggests ditching rigid critiques for lively story-sharing sessions among colleagues. Share experiences through storytelling. What challenges did you face? What inner struggles? How did you overcome obstacles? Dramatic stories inspire best. Their details guide others facing similar tasks. Second, managers themselves should refine the delegation system. For example, evolve delegation from cultivating individuals to building teams. What does that mean? Like, if developing a manager, pair them with someone who complements their weaknesses. Take team leader Noda. Bold, articulate, great with clients and colleagues. The author wanted to promote him to manager, but he's chronically careless. Solution? Replace him? Hire externally? Finding such all-round talent is hard. Best fix: pair Noda with a detail-oriented deputy. This setup has two benefits. First, combined management massively boosts team capability. Second, when the manager gets promoted, the deputy seamlessly takes over, effectively training two people at once. This creates a team development system, what the author advocates, building diverse talent combinations to leverage everyone's strengths. For refining delegation, establish standardized methods. Outline processes, goals, outcomes, and assignments in templates. For example, standardize client calls from initial inquiry to final contract signing. Steps include handling calls, proposing solutions, client follow-up targets, contract closures. Outcome is monthly signings. Assign roles to different people. At the author's company, such templates cover office walls, standardized and transparent workflows everywhere. This fosters healthy team competition and helps managers evaluate role fit better. So, how to execute delegation? Before delegating, transfer responsibility alongside tasks. Progress gradually. After delegating, don't interfere or neglect and never bypass levels. Finally, in review, distill lessons, refine systems, and standardize methods. That's the core of this book, The Art of Delegation. Sounds simple, assigning tasks, but the devil's in the details. Micromanage or empower. Intervene or hold back. This tension defines delegation's challenge and growth potential. May this book shift leaders' mindsets at all levels and offer practical guidance. All right, that wraps up our exploration of the art of delegation. Reading notes below the audio. See you next time.